And we're continuing with Rejuvenation Through Joy by Langston Hughes. On the day when the Negroes arrived for their rehearsals just prior to the opening of the place, Saul gave them a lecture. "Fellows," he said, addressing the band, and Miss Lucas, to the blues singing little coal-black dancer, "listen. Now I want to tell you about this place. This will not be no nightclub, nor will it be a dance hall. This place is more like a church. It's for the rebuilding of souls and bodies. It's for helping people who are worn out and tired, sick and bored. And weed, in other words, will come here for treatments, the kind of treatments that Mr. Lachey and I have devised, which includes music, the best music, jazz, real primitive jazz out of Africa, Harlem, to help them learn to move, to walk, to live in harmony with their times and themselves. Now I want you all to be ladies and gentlemen, I know you are, to play with abandon, to give them all you got, but don't treat this like a rough house, nor like the Moon Club either. We allow only champagne drinkers here, cultured ladies, nice gentlemen, the best, the very best, Park Avenue. You know what I mean. Now this is the order of the day. In the morning at 11, Mr. Lachey will lecture in the Palm Garden, glass enclosed, on the art of motion and rhythm. You, Miss Tulane Lucas, and you two top dancers there will illustrate. You will show grace in modern movements, aliveness, the beat of Africa as expressed through the body. Mr. Lachey will illustrate too. He's one of Bill Robinson's disciples, you know. You all know how tap dancing has preserved Bill, a man of his age, past 50. Well, we want to show our clients how it can preserve them, but don't do no struts now, just easy rhythm stuff. We got to start 'em off slow. Some of 'em is old, and I expect some is Christian Scientists. Then, in the late afternoon, we will have tea dancing, just for pleasure. We want to give 'em plenty of exercise so they won't be bored, and so they will eat. We expect to make money on our table, and on massages too. In the evening, for 1 hour, put on the best show you got, singing and dancing. Every week we're going to bring up new specialities. Send her to bed feeling happy before Mr. Lachey gives his good night and sweet dreams talk. Now you boys understand you'll be off early here by 10 or 11, not like at the club. You got your own cottage here on the estate to live on. You got your own cars. Don't mind you driving to town if you want to, but I want you back here for the 11 o'clock services in the morning. And I don't want you sleepy either. This house is dedicated to joy, and all who work here have got to be bright and snappy. That's what our people are paying for. Lachey, where is Lachey, Miss Boxall? The secretary looked startled. He was in the halls talking with the new French maids. Well, get him in here. Tell him to explain to these boys how he wants to fix up his routine. For his lectures. Let's get down to business now. What kind of clothes you want us to wear? Happy Lane, the Negro leader, asked. Red, said Saul. Red is the color of joy. Lord, said the blues singer, I'm too dark to wear red. That's what we want, said Saul. Darkness and light. We want to show 'em how much light there is in darkness. Now here, said the blues singer to herself, I don't like no white folks talking about me being dark. Lachey, Saul called to his partner, strolling in through the door. Let's get going. Okay, Lachey said. Where's my boy? Meaning the Yale man. Right here, Gene. Now, how does that first lecture go? My God, said Saul. The Yale man referred to his notes. Joy, he read. Joy springing from the dark rhythm of the primitive. Oh, yes, said Lachey, turning to the band. Now for that, give me mood indigo. You know, soft and syncopated. Moan it soft and low. Then you, Miss Lucas, to the dancer. You come gliding on. Give it plenty hip movement. I want 'em to learn to use their life center. Then I'm going to say, what's that, boyfriend? To the Yale man. See how the Negroes live, dark as the earth, the primitive earth, swaying like trees, rooted in the deepest source of life. Then I'm going to have 'em all rise and sway like Miss Lucas here. That ought to keep 'em from being bored until lunchtime. Laud, said Miss Lucas, muttering to herself. What is this, a dancing school or a Sunday school? And louder, all right, Mr. Lachey, sounds like it might be a good act. Act nothing, said Saul. This is the art of life. Must be, if you say so, said Miss Lucas. Well, let's go, commanded the great Lachey. Let's rehearse the first lecture now. Come on, boys. The jazz band began to cry Mood Indigo in the best manner of the immortal Duke Ellington. Lachey began to speak in his great soft voice. Bushy-haired Tulane Lucas began to glide across the floor. God damn, said Saul. It's worth the money. Hey, hey, said Miss Lucas. Shh, said Lachey. Be dignified. Rooted in the deepest source of life, Oh, early soul in motion, prompted the Yale man. Oh, early soul, intoned Lachey. The amazing collection of people gathered together in the colony of joy astounded even Lachey, whose very blaseness was what really made him appear so fresh. His 37 clients in residence came almost all from families in high social register and equally high in the financial world. When Mrs. Crabb Carlos Gleed's check of entrance came in, Saul said, Boy, we're made. For of society there could be no higher. Blue blood straight out of Back Bay. The opening of the colony created a furor among all the smart neuroascentics from Park Avenue, right on up to New England. Dozens applied too late and failed to get in. Others drove up daily for the lectures. Of those who came, some had belonged formerly to the self-denial cults. Others to Gurdjieff. Others had been analyzed in Paris, Berlin, Vienna, had consulted Adler, Hirschfeld, Freud. Some had studied under famous yogi. Others had been at Nyack. Now they had come up to the colony of joy. Up and down Park Avenue, miraculous gossip flew. Why, Mrs. Charles Duveen Althouse of Newport and Paris, feeling bad for years, is said to look like a cherub since she's gone into the colony. My dear, the famous Oriental fan painter, Van Clumer Jones, he's another man these days. The rhythms, he says, the rhythms have worked wonders, and just the very presence of Lachey. Nothing America has ever known. Rumor flew about the penthouse of the East River. Nothing is equal to it, the Baroness Langston gasped in a letter to a talkative friend. My God, it's marvelous. Far better than Indian, thought Miss Joan Reeves, the heiress of Meadowbrook, was said to have said to her best friends. The movement is amazing. Almost all of them had belonged to cults before, cults that had never satisfied. Some of them had even been injured by them. To a cult they based the soul search on self-denial. Deny what you like best. Have it around you all the time, but never touch it. Never then will you be strong. Mrs. Duveen, although had belonged, Mrs. Duveen Althouse had belonged. She denied chocolates for a whole year, kept fresh candy sitting in each corner of her boudoir, resisted with all her soul, and at the end of the year was a wreck. Mr. Jones, the fan painter, had belonged to a group on Cape Cod that believed in change through change. That is, whatever you want to be, you can. And all the members, after they had paid their fees, were told by the mystic master to change their names to whatever they most wished to be, or whomever, past or present, they admired. Some, without much depth, chose Napoleon or Cleopatra, but others Daphne or Zeus or Mary Delval. Mr. Jones chose horse. He'd always wanted to be an animal, to possess their strength and calm, their vigor, their ways. But after a whole summer at the Cape, he was even less of a horse than before, and greatly mosquito-bitten. Mrs. Ken Prather II, a member of Lachey's group, had once spent months entire kneeling, holding her big toes behind her, deep in contemplation. A most handsome Indian came once a week to her home on East 64th for an enormous consideration, and gave her lessons in silence on the positions of thought. But finally she just couldn't stand it anymore. Others of the colony of joy had been scientists in their youth. Others had wandered disappointed the ways of spiritualism, never finding soulmates. Still others had gazed solemnly into crystals, but had seen nothing but darkness now. They had come to joy. How did it happen that nobody before had ever offered them rejuvenation through joy? Why, that was what they had been looking for all these years, and who would have thought it might come through the amusing and delightful rhythms of Negroes? Nobody but Lachey. In the warm, glass-enclosed palm garden that winter, where the Cupid fountain had been replaced by an enlargement of an African plastic, and where a jazz band played, soft and low behind the hedges, they felt, those that were there by virtue of their checkbooks, all a tremble in the depths of their souls after they had done their African exercises, looking at Lachey, those slow, slightly grotesque center-swaying exercises that he and Tulane Lucas from the Moon Club had devised. When they had finished the movement, the music and Lachey's voice made them feel all warm and close to the earth, as though they never wanted to leave the colony of joy or to be away from their great leader again. Of course, there were a few who left, but their places were soon filled by others, more truly mystic in the primitive sense than those whose arteries had already hardened, and who somehow couldn't follow a modern path to happiness or sit on African stools. Clarence Lachard, for one, with his spine, had needed actual medical treatments not to be found in the colony of joy, and Mrs. J. Northcliffe Hill, in the 70s, was a little too old for even the simple exercises that led to center swaying. But for the 2 or 3 who went away, 4 or 5 came, and the house was full of life and soul. Every morning, ensemble, they lifted up their hands to the sun when the earth drums rang out, and the sun was Lachey standing right there. Lachey was called the new leader. The Negro bandmaster was known as Happy Man. The dancers were called the Primitives. The drummer was ritualized as Earth Drummer, and the devotees were called New Men, New Women, for the Yale man had written in one of the lectures. And the age-old rhythm of the earth, as expressed by the drums, is also the ever-new rhythm of life, and all you who walk to it, dance to it, live to it, are new men and new women. You shall call one another not by the old names, but only new man, new woman, new one, forgetting the past. They called Lachey dear new leader, for, continued the gist of that particular lecture, newness eternal, renewal, is the source of all growth, all life, and we grow from day to day here in this colony. We shall be ever new, ever joyous and new. Give me sweet jazz on that line, Lachey had instructed at rehearsals. So on the thrilling morning of that lecture, the saxophones and clarinets moaned so beautiful and low, the drum beats called behind the palms with such wistful syncopation, that everybody felt impelled to move a new way, as Lachey said. Let us rise this morning and do a new dance, the dance of our new selves, and 39 life centers began to sway with the greatness of confidence in the palm court, for by now many inhibitions had fallen away, and the first exercise had been learned perfectly. And we will pause there.